I'm pretty excited about this panel, too. Hey, is that Zach?
Do you see things?
Josh, do we have anybody on the light? It's a little too bright in here. So I'm just going to make a quick announcement and hand it off to our good friend Josh Fields, who'll tell you about morning food and beverage service. I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Sony PlayStation, Dell Alienware, HumbleBundle.com. You have like an hour less to purchase the Fantastic Arcade Humble Bundle, which has 12 amazing Fantastic Arcade games on it. You can do it on your phone. We won't get out of the theater. It'll be fine. Also, GameRoomSolutions.com helped us make cabinets this year, and Discount Electronics helped us do just about everything. One quick other announcement. All day today, you have a chance to vote for your favorite Fantastic Arcade game. We've got a ballot box in the arcade proper, which is in the front of the highball. So that helps out these indie developers a whole lot if you give them your vote of support. Bring up Josh Fields to tell you a little bit about service, and then we'll hand stuff off to our moderator, Rachel Weil.
Cool. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming. This is going to be a really good panel. I'm super excited to be here for it. So how food works here is there's a menu in front of you, and then you just take that piece of paper, you write down your order, and you put it up on the railing. Service staff will come around and pick up those orders, and then let's call it, we said 12:45, right? 12:45 is when they're going to cut off service. So after they drop checks, just pay it really promptly, and be sure to tip because it is a service provided. Thanks.
All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, Wiley. I'm Rachel Weil, one of the folks running this fest. Glad you're here joining us this morning. I'm going to actually sit off stage because I want full attention on our three panelists today. So we have a little bit longer panel format than normal, and that's because these guys have so much to say and share with us, and I don't want to take up too much time. I'm going to start off by letting them introduce themselves, a little bit of why they're here or what projects they have to share, things they've worked on in the past and things that they have brought to the fest. So, Jerry, are we going to be starting with you?
Hello.
If you want to just each of you just say your name and then go ahead and launch in.
I'm Jerry Belich. I had a project Choosatron here 2 years ago, and then this year I have Afterglow, tank top, a Luftrausers controller, telephone thing, an egg. Moving on.
My name's Andy Reitano, and I brought Super Russian Roulette this year. It's my first public showing, and like really great way to start. Actually, today's really exciting. We're releasing a trailer for an arcade game I've been working on. It's a new vector arcade game, collaborating with two people in New York. And Zach Johnson and we just met 2 days ago, and we've been working on a new project that's interactive. So you'll be able to interact with it with your phone. It's going to be really good. I'm really excited.
I'm Estel Vance. I go by Doc, and I'm from Rogue Synapse. Last year I brought Polybius and Starfighter. I've been creating fake arcade games for 20-something years. This year I brought the Splatterhouse, which obviously wasn't my work, but anyway, that's what I've been doing. So, show you some new projects.
Great. So, Jerry, it looks like you are hooked up to the laptop, so if you want to walk through what you've got to show us today, that would be great.
Yeah. So I've been doing hardware for a couple of years now, and that had started with the Choosatron in terms of my own work, and before that was kind of various installation things through jobs that I had. And lately, I've kind of gotten to this place where the work I've been doing is kind of increasingly more advanced in terms of the microcontrollers that I'm working with and the type of coding I'm doing. But it also, I kind of also realized how much how far I had come from not knowing how to work with Arduinos and not know how to talk to different pieces of hardware, and then being able to combine those and have them work together, and then finally actually have ideas and very easily be able to say, okay, I know what I want to do in order to actually make these work together. And so I've been thinking a lot more about how to make that more accessible for people, and how to make it something that's less scary and kind of demystify it a bit, so that it's something that people can kind of jump into a little easier. And I've done something called Alt Control GDC the last couple of years at the Game Developers Conference. And a friend of mine, Yoon, had brought Canabalt P100 there, where it's, let me see if I can actually show what I'm talking about rather than just. So this is actually, I'm just stealing presentation stuff. I just did a video series, like an instructional video series for O'Reilly called Prototyping for Play, Tinkering with Games in a Connected World, because long titles are really great. And so I have all these pieces for that, but I want to try and show you. Here we go. It's this one. So what Yoon did was he started a thing called Burn the Keyboard. And so here's some example of some alt control games, actually. So this is Rocket. It's like a multi-pedal game, so you have like 5 people that apply force from one of 5 rockets, so you're all trying to work together. It's a very fun, weird, collaborative thing. There's the RG Briefcase, which is the first year at Alt Control, where an audio game, so you have a telephone handset and you're figuring out the kind of Simon-esque cues in order to break inside, and then it was filled with candy. And then Please Don't Space Dog from the wonderful co-ops. Hey, Bronson. Bronson told me all sorts of things about that. I don't know if he's told people how little time was put into it. And how super happy he was when he found out he had to make it in such little time. So ask him about that. We've, of course, Line Wobbler, which if you have not heard of, you're living under a rock, or you just don't go to those places on the internet that talk specifically about hardware games like this. But Line Wobbler is Robin Baumgartner, Garten, I can't say his last name, and it's a one-dimensional dungeon crawler, which is just absolutely bonkers good. It's one of those things where when you play it, you're like, it's not good for what it is. It's just like I would pay $60 for that on right next to like a PS4 game. It's that good. It's actually kind of like when you're doing this kind of work and like you meet people that do stuff like that have that kind of sublime creation, you kind of like get a little mad at them, because it's like, oh man, I'm not going to be able to, like, you want to be able to match that. And like, I think the beautiful thing though about people creating, like, I mean, stuff in general, but like hardware games, because it's kind of this smaller burgeoning community, people getting into making and electronics and learning new things, and it, like, for me, has been a very supportive community, and people connecting and kind of helping each other and maybe even collaborating. And Robin is like certainly an example of someone that's like that. So it ends up being this kind of feedback loop of inspiration and people doing that for each other. And so back to Yoon and Burn the Keyboard. When he came there, he hadn't really done much hardware stuff at all. So this is just a simple, MIDI connection and then using each one of the keys to jump one of the many, many characters. But after coming to Alt Control and seeing like all the different work there, and we talked about this, like, oh, and the Choosatron and all these other things, And so he just had to create this kind of workshop. And the idea for it, the keyboard in the background is actually a keyboard that I recovered from a house fire. A friend of mine's younger sister burned down her parents' house non-maliciously, and there was an Apple wireless keyboard that survived it, sort of. The top was just all bubbly and burnt, and it kind of looks like walnut shells that were glued onto a keyboard. And the bottom is absolutely pristine, and you could still turn it on, and it would connect over Bluetooth. So that was kind of a fun, weird one. But basically, like, the idea is getting people together with, like, craft supplies, with cardboard, with tape, with X-Actos and all that, getting a lot of mechanical components, so anything that kind of works like a switch. So a button, anything with an open-closed circuit. Joysticks work similarly, where it's kind of 4 switches generally. Some have PCBs in them, and just like one common line or one ground for the reference signal, which, like, in electronics is basically the way that you're reading pins is you have your kind of reference signal, which is your common line or ground, that's generally at 0 volts or very, very close to it, but there's always noise. And then there's the high voltage for pin states, which is, it might be 3.3 volts or 5, but the idea is that when you're like setting a pin or reading information from it, that signal is high or low, and that's your 1 or 0, that's your on and off. And then analog pins are a little different, where you have you can read many more values from that. And so if you look at microcontrollers like Arduino and stuff like that, that's where kind of the digital analog pin thing comes from. And then one of the greatest tools for getting people into this kind of stuff is what are called human interface device emulators. So a Makey Makey is an example of that, where you plug it in your computer and it's pre-mapped with keys like the up, down, left, right arrows, a click, space bar. Makey Makey is kind of special in that it also focuses on conductive controls, so using high resistance in order to send current through your body and through like a banana or whatever, to allow using just about anything as a control. So you can plug the alligator clips into a bunch of bananas or papayas, or the last one I did was figs, and then use those as a control. So I cut figs in half, and I brought up Mario, and then just kind of sticking your finger in the figs, and it's really squishy. And that was fun for a couple minutes, and then I washed my hands. But there are a lot of other devices like this. Like a very popular one is the iPack. That's used a lot in arcade cabinets because it has just a crazy amount of inputs. I've actually seen, like, it's kind of hard to find the iPack now, or it's a little pricier, like I think $60 or so. So it's really great if you need a lot of inputs and a really easy way to get going. For hobby stuff, I would actually recommend going either with something like Makey Makey or the Easy Key, and I use that in a number of my projects. It's through Adafruit, $20, 12 inputs, but it connects like a Bluetooth keyboard. So once you've paired it with a device, and you can always repair, but once you've paired it to a computer or a smartphone and you power it up, it'll just connect to it. And it's really fantastic, especially like being able to just magically connect to a smartphone, where a normal HID emulator would not be able to do that, or at least not very simply. And also just kind of eliminating that tether and wire really allows for some fun things. And I'll show that a little bit later when we do demo fun. And then the other one is, if you are more of a developer or want to get more into that, there's the Teensy. And the Teensy is a microcontroller that has lots and lots and lots of pins, but it also has the ability to do conductive inputs similar to the Makey Makey, but it's a very small form factor, so it's great to be able to put in stuff. It's also $20. Makey Makey's like 62, or 60 as well. But it does come with like all these alligator clips, and if you are very new and or working with kids or something, it is brilliant because even the remapping, you just go to a website and has these very simple step-by-step instructions. It's super wonderful. So yeah, just more examples here, kind of what Burn the Keyboard is. But this is a philosophy that I totally got on board with and got super inspired from you, and which is great because it kind of goes back to that feedback loop where he got inspired by the work of myself and other people, and then took that inspiration and went and did some amazing stuff with it. Here's one example of a Burn the Keyboard game that was made. So it's a balloon simulator. You're flapping one of the cardboard flaps to kind of fly. There's little things you can pull to drop, like sandbags. And then you can, once you've basically the devices, they're emulating inputs, so keyboard commands, and not just like a single letter or a single key, but you can do a combination, I think, of up to like 6 or 7 keys as one press. So you can do very complex like sets of commands. It can also control the mouse, so you can do some pretty wild stuff. This is a Pictionary drawing game that's also a massage. And then like a fencing game where they just put buttons on the end of the lances and then a button in the middle of their chest, or maybe it's on their head in this case. And then if both of those inputs are down, then like that's a hit. You scored a hit. And creating an application to work with that on the computer, like you could do that through Scratch or Stencil, that's just drag and drop logic. Or hell, you could have text, like a text editor open that just like records the key presses, so you can actually see like these are the key presses that come in. And that's generally how I test. Like I have it connected to my computer, I open a text file, and I just see if all my different inputs are sending the right key commands in. That's a bunch of broken keyboards. And I really like this quote. Keyboards are for writing suicide notes, not for dancing. Which is obviously like kind of meant to be a little extreme and get a bit of a reaction, but it's also kind of like a really great point where keyboards were not designed for all the interesting creative outputs that like we've started using them for. I mean, they work for them, and I kind of get into this argument with people about the software Twine, because I do a lot of like interactive fiction stuff, and obviously the Choosatron is like completely surrounding that. And I think Twine is like incredible because of like the amount of expression that it's allowed people to have. But I think it's a terrible piece of software, in the sense that like it's horrible interface and like it has all these problems. But the thing is, people like love creating that kind of content so much that they are able to work through that and make incredible work because of it. And people get really defensive about that because they're like, no, Twine's amazing. I got to make all this great stuff. It's like, your work is amazing. Like, you being able to create what you create and express those things is amazing. The tool is broken. It's like, and the reason that kind of bugs me when people get like that is that they're giving the tool like way more credit than they should be, when like they're the ones that are kind of putting themselves into their work and doing something that's really, really special. And also, I want a better tool, and if everybody believes that a poor tool is a great tool, then that won't happen. And since interactive fiction means a lot to me, I want there to be better stuff there. Let's see, where else can we go here? So one thing I particularly really like is finding old, weird hardware, because when you get into old hardware, it's this magical thing where it starts getting simpler. The electronics, the components, they start getting bigger. You can actually see them with your eyes. And like there's a lot more clever work being done in terms of like just these mechanical contraptions. And I think the rotary phone is such a freaking cool example of that, because it's so weird. Like if you look at a rotary phone through the lens of somebody that's never used one, they are bewildered. It makes absolutely no sense to them. And I watch them try and use it, and they poke their fingers in the holes and are really confused when that doesn't do anything. And like aren't sure how to turn it, and I look at it, I'm like, it's amazing to me seeing like how that is. And because it's such an unintuitive kind of interface. But the reason it works is once you've seen it once, then it makes perfect sense. The learning curve is extremely low, but it's extremely unintuitive, which is actually kind of one of the challenges when building hardware-based games, especially hardware-only games, when you don't have the benefit of really smooth tutorials, really smooth like instructions, stuff like that. So like my game Afterglow, super hard to walk up and just know how to play. And it's the game, excuse me, in there, if you saw it, that's like kind of a briefcase with a weird scope thing, and it's like kind of a Soviet missile simulator. And the idea is actually, it makes a lot of sense once you kind of know how it works, but until then, there's just no way for you to get what's happening. And it's just like a ring of LEDs, a rotary, those positions being kind of a one-to-one spatially, and then you dial one to spin a little radar scan, and then you dial the direction of enemies to shoot them down. And people generally get it pretty quick once they know that. But what I love about a rotary phone is when you kind of open it up, you've got the big rotary piece, you've got the coil that's kind of wrapped up by one of the bells, that's the electromagnet, and there's a little hammer, and so when it gets the alternating current at the appropriate voltage level, then it pulls the hammer toward one bell, and then like you get on the down side of the sine wave, and then it lets go, and then it pulls it and it lets go, and surprise, surprise, that is a ring. And the frustrating part when you're kind of hacking a rotary phone is that the voltage required that it's designed to use is like 70 volts AC, which is not an easy voltage to pump up to. And I did successfully upconvert a 5-volt signal to about like 60-ish. And I got it to ring. And then I realized that all the work I'd put into this really complex circuit to make it happen was just a huge fucking waste of time, because I could have just wound a new electromagnet that responded to a voltage that I wanted to apply to it. So that was kind of, couldn't see the trees in that instance. But it was actually really satisfying. Like, I learned a few things while doing that. I learned more about... I took an Arduino and had it controlling the signal and using an H-bridge that I could pull in this voltage and split it down multiple channels. And then, yeah, it was super, super fun. So I think I got the wrap-up signal. Is that correct, Rachel?
If you have like maybe a minute or two, I also wanted to pause if anyone has any questions for you about this process.
Okay, I'm going to keep talking, so if you do have a question, raise your hand, and then we'll do that, but I really want to go through a couple of things quick. One is, my background is much more crafting than, like, building, because I really don't have much access to, like, a wood shop or anything like that, and so the kind of stuff I do is this. So this is a Swede that I made, and I'm not going to show it, but, like, this is the kind of shit that I do. I have huge bins full of felt and foam and hot glue guns like everywhere, because and Afterglow was made entirely with that, and it was kind of frustrating because I wanted to use laser cutter and stuff like that, and my access is very limited. So like, but it also works really well in kind of the burn the keyboard sort of sense of building stuff. Like it's a crafter's paradise. This is Tank Top. This was at Bit Bash, and it's out in the arcade. But this was made on Train Jam, just out of kind of garbage that I found on the train. It's a Lysol container, ice bucket, Dixie cups, white wine bottles for the controls, a lot of hot glue, and a lot of fumes. And it was super fun making 3 days, but a pain in the butt to bring that much hardware. And oh yeah, the other thing I wanted to bring up, and this is kind of like connecting to Andy's stuff a little bit thematically, really. So I want to reveal a bit of information really quick. There was a haunted NES put on eBay quite a few years ago, like 8 maybe, I don't know, 2005. So I bid on it because I thought that was really funny, and I had no intention of actually paying for it, and I didn't. But I did bid a lot of money, and the person, probably fed up with getting fake bids, took it down. What I didn't consider at the time was everybody else in the world assumed that I had purchased it. So then I decided to start a blog about the haunted NES, the case of the haunted NES. And that was fun. I basically started making fake photos of my friend playing the NES, and he was actually running off an emulator on an Xbox, because all I had was a broken NES, so that was just like in the frame. And he did audio work, so he was doing fake audio analysis of it. And then a guy from 1UP called me and did an interview, and so I lied to him for a while. And then he was like, "Hey, will you send me the NES?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And so I went to my friend Sally, because she had a working one, and I was like, "Sally, can I borrow your NES? I need to send it to San Francisco so that a journalist can take it to an exorcist." And she was like, "Yeah, that's cool, man." So did that, and then sent the package, and then he brings it to this lady, and she's like, "Oh, it's a good thing you came. It's there is definitely a dead kid in this NES." And I was like, "Oh my God, what are the chances?" Like, Sally's NES also had a dead kid in it. So, like, she still owes me for that one. 'Cause yeah, she gave it happiness and harmony, and she put some ointment on it or something, and then sent it back. So that was a thing that happened. But yeah, I guess I'll just kind of wrap it up. But yeah, I think crafting and making all that stuff is great together. Later on, I'll be demoing this rotary phone game, and it's using the Easy Key and Bluetooth, so I can actually pass it around, and we can have the game on the big screen and just like give people a chance to quick play. And and actually, if you go to the website jerrytron.com/files and then /QCAR.html, QCAR, you can control this little remote control car if you want. And I just did that. So that's a second thing I've spilled this morning. That was water, thankfully, but the first thing I spilled salsa all over here.
Oh, is that what's on the bottom?
Yeah, and I even put the water down there so that I wouldn't spill it. Or if I did, it would just be on carpet and really dry. Oh, Josh, I'm so sorry.
So do we have any questions
Yeah,
for Jerry while we
mess.
get dried off here?
Oh, and I have a remote control egg. It's Bluetooth low energy powered. It has two rotational motors. I'll show that later too.
So I've got a question for you. Actually, I'll kick things off. You have a tab open called the Ghost Arcade, and I was curious whether that was there was the exhibition that was it Scott Deeming curated. Was this part of that exhibition?
I knew nothing about this.
Oh, there's another event called Ghost Arcade. Maybe you guys should look each other up.
Yeah, I don't know. This thing was written about me, but I never saw it until like very recently. So, but it's somebody that like evidently does things at GDC and whatever. Oh, are people actually controlling it? Raise your hand if you controlled it. Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
lovely.
And the way it works, it queues up commands. So you say like how long you want it to run, the speed, the action, and then you can just keep pushing commands to it. So.
I knew it was you.
Yay, it's spinning, and you can't see it. It's really fun, though.
Did a great job.
Any other quick questions for Jerry before we move on to Andy? We'll also have some time at the end for Q&A, so if you're still formulating your question, there's plenty of time.
We get super distracted.
Yeah, you just
All
say the
right.
word, and I'll stomp on it and stop it.
So I think we're going to switch over
Yeah.
computers real quick.
Thanks, people. I'll show you things later. I thought you'd appreciate that, considering.
Hopefully this works. Okay, cool. Well, that's not good. You get to see all my notes. That's all right. My name is Andy Reitano. I introduced myself before. Like I said, I was here to show Super Russian Roulette, but I figured I'd cover some of the hardware projects that have gone over in the past couple of years. So here we go. I primarily started with electronics, doing guitar pedals, because I wanted to be in a band. And people say I'm a successful engineer, but I do feel like a failure because I wanted to play guitar in a band. So I have it kind of backwards now. So I initially started by, I always liked coding, coding in BASIC. I really was into DOS games, a lot of adventure games, messing around with that. I had a Commodore, which is super fun. And I started messing around with making guitar pedals just before, I guess, my late teens. And got to play with a bunch of ferric chloride and fuck up sinks in my apartment. And, I really liked kind of the artsy side. I really liked painting them and etching them and kind of getting, kind of the recessed paint and everything. So this is kind of how I started with electronics. I've always been okay at soldering, and now I've gotten really good at it, and liked working on repairing arcade boards, just simple fixes. And these are the ones that really launched me into getting interested in circuit design and really, having boards manufactured and not just etched. That's my buddy Zach from way back. So those are the ones I just wanted to pull. And then eventually I met a few people. I started getting into NES development because it shares a processor with the Commodore 64, it's 6502. And I had been following this guy, Don Miller, goes by the name No Carrier. And he just posted on his blog, oh, hey, I'm doing this thing. It's Blip Festival in New York, 2009. And I dropped by and we talked shop about assembly, and I got really excited about the whole thing. So then from there, I started getting really into console development. And I've always been into console games, It's kind of a pastime for people closest to me to go through and play the games that we played growing up. And so I started creating visual art on Sega Genesis. And if you don't know about the chip music scene, they typically pair a visualist. Rachel is here today. She does visuals on the NES. I do it on Sega Genesis. And they'll play they usually project in front of the artist. JW, is that you? That's fine. Actually, that's what really got me way deep into console development. I don't know if I have sound, actually.
Is that audio jack?
Where's the jack?
Jerry has it.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that.
here you go.
This is me and Mark, guy Monodeer. Yeah, so actually a friend put it together this video. It's pretty cool. This guy Citrix, Chris from Australia. This is the kind of stuff that really got me into it. Everyone was, so we had a gig later that night in New York, and we were making all the visual stuff while he was making the music on the Game Boy, and we were having, it's just a ton of fun to collaborate with this stuff. And actually by the end of it, to close up, the most fun I've had, and the reason I got really passionate about these projects was working with people or trying to impress your friends and really like going back and forth, like this kind of thing where he's sitting there and he's, changing the music. It's like, oh, can you drop my logo colors on? And that's what that pink and blue was. So everything's triggered by the Genesis. This was 68K assembly, which is easier and more difficult than 6502 in a way. But Chris shot a bunch of video, and he showed this at PAX Australia, which is really cool. And he was really obsessed with Four Loko while he was in New York. This is a few years ago, so. What was really cool about that is that was like a few hours before we did this big gig, and we synced up all the visual stuff, and he has this real gritty, textured, noisy approach to everything. So I got to sync and almost like pre-plan some of the stuff. It was really fun, and people went crazy. So this is the same setup, and it's just two Nomads, which is like a portable version of the Genesis with a screen on it, which is perfect for visual stuff. You don't have to lug out that. But people, these shows get kind of wild. It's really a lot of fun. But he made all this music on the Game Boy, and the whole place was shaking. It's great. And then I got to visit Australia, which was an incredible experience. I never even left the East Coast, and I had to go get a passport. So this whole scene was really, really amazing, and I met Rachel through it, and I probably wouldn't be here without it. So just wanted to say. From there, started launching off into doing some more analog, visual type stuff. So I've done in 8-static in Philly, and it's a camera pointed on an oscilloscope, an early prototype for the arcade game I was going to show. And the projector they had and the camera we had picked up beautiful, beautiful art, and really big picture. This is Meklo from Portland, and Jeremiah Johnson, Nelson, and we collaborated on this too. So the Genesis is the front layer, and the background is just me actually messing with the horizontal on the scope, and you get all these great phosphor traces and everything like that. So this is, so this is an early prototype for the vector game that we worked on. All right, so I'm going to launch. I'm probably going to fly through most of these, so I'm going to get to that. The first big project they had done was something called Drunkenness, and I placed an alcohol sensor in an NES cart, and the idea was that you would blow into it, it would plug into controller port 2, would blow into it, and make a bunch of score based on your blood alcohol level. And this one got really popular, but I sort of like freaked out about it because I didn't want to sell it or have somebody get way too drunk or something like that. So I never actually released it, but actually I brought it. I don't know if we'll be able to play it today. But, you know, it's like cutesy little screens, really kind of simple stuff. You get a ranking based on how much you drank.
So should we get some Bloody Marys?
Yeah, but it was interesting to work on the sensor. And this is like one of the first, like, this is like the first big NES project they had done from front to back. But this really launched me again, you know, working with friends. And actually, if I have time, Emmy likes party because she's here. Yeah. But it was super fun to make, and I brought it to a gig, and everyone was going crazy, and it was really good in that way. So that was Drunkenness. And then, so I started getting really serious about console stuff. I didn't want to use a flash cart for my visual stuff anymore. So I started routing boards and the custom flasher. So this is a Sega board. It's a 1 megabyte board and a little custom thing, and you put USB through. And yeah, here's him just peeking out of the Genesis there. So this was great because I had a cheap way to have boards that I can, you know, spill beer on at a gig and everything, and started trying to release small programs, ones that wouldn't be a huge deal to just give away. Like I have a couple of these cards I give away as business cards. So, but this is where, like, you know, the core of it lies. Like I'm not really a game designer, probably in the traditional sense, although most people I met here aren't. It's really incredible people I've met from all disciplines and everything. But we also started working on, I have a friend, Dustin Long, started working on this game called Star Versus. It's a new NES release. And he said, hey, can I put my game on your hardware? And I really wasn't keen on it because it just seemed like a lot of work, but I played his game and it's awesome. It's really good. I'm going to put up a link in a bit. He's been working on it like crazy, super talented guy. He was about 100 boards, so he started manufacturing NES boards. This is the the sweatshop where I ended up being able to hire the people. These are the two guys I play NES games with. I'd be able to hire them to do long, you know, kind of big runs. We ended up moving about 300 carts, which there's a huge homebrew. I have to make more, which is like I'm dreading. I go back. I got to go order more parts. But you know, Nick on the right, who did the music for Super Russian Roulette, is screening solder paste for those boards, and John on the left, who helped me play test and generally helps me with everything, is placing parts. And we have like a little modified easy bake oven. My neighbors are super concerned because you just see smoke pillowing out of an oven in my backyard. Yeah, so that's console stuff. I'm trying to move quick. Part of the thing we're going to show today is it's a mod to the Nintendo where I swapped out the RAM with a thing called dual port RAM, which allows you to have two hosts read and write to the same memory. So the NES runs kind of unbothered. And then the second chip on there is a microcontroller, and you could speak to it over serial, and that's what Zach is working on right now. And this is good for debugging. You know, I really made it so I can debug my games, and because some games run on an emulator, but it's not so 100% accurate, right? So you put on the console and it doesn't work, and you're just dead in the water. It's really aggravating. So with that, I was trying to extend games I really already loved without modifying the game. There's no ROM hack. There's nothing like that. It's just the console change. So one of our favorites was Blades of Steel. So we made a full scoreboard and a goal siren for when you score. And that card's completely unmodified. There's no like special hacks or anything like that. It's just reading the RAM values back and forth. Second demo was Contra, which had a relay click whenever you fired and had the whole room light up, which is really funny and then annoying. About 30. It took about an hour to make and then 10 seconds to get sick of. But the best part, and the part we're going to look at today, is pushing. It's like a live hex editor, pushing normally expected values out of their range. So here's like the whip value, and it's a pointer to a table of the objects that make up the whip. So, just messing with it a little bit, his whip turns into a treasure chest going into a Medusa head. So you can really, really botch the games in ways you couldn't expect. This is just a frame step type thing for debugging. And I think I have too much stuff in here. I'm going to skip one or two. How much time do I have?
Maybe another 10 minutes or so.
Okay, I'll go over a quick one. We did a Sega CD release, which I'm really excited about. Like I said, it's all collaboration stuff. My buddy Christoph does music, and we did an album on a Sega CD that was really cool because the CDR is like 10 cents, so we can give them away at shows. And he's writing this all cool, trappy chip music, and this was like the final frontier for me to do this Sega CD full motion video because I'm obsessed with Sewer Shark. When I was a teenager, I wanted to work in the sewers. I knew it was all bullshit and Solar City wasn't real, but I kind of wanted to fly around the sewers and shoot a bunch of the rats and everything. But they have a live mode, a bunch of floppy samples you could jam over the music and everything. So I like this multimedia release. But you see all these videos, it's always love working with people. And if I work on something myself, I get really tired of it quick. And I think that's probably part of all this. And skip that. So one thing I'm really excited to show you guys, and you'll be, honestly, you'd probably be only 5 to 10 people have seen this trailer so far. I've been working with 2 super talented engineers, Todd Bailey and Michael Dooley in New York, on this arcade game. And I lugged home found a vector monitor, Electrohome Geo5 XY monochrome asteroids monitor, and we were hell-bent on putting pictures on it and drawing cubes and potato chips and whatever else. And we had some early prototype stuff. This was for Todd's birthday. We put Biggie on a monitor for him. This is a raster scan, but you get these this was like with 4 resistors we tied together. This other guy, Mike Schmidt, another super sharp guy. It's like, it's dark, and we were, a few beers deep and twisting resistors together and blowing up the transistors on the side. So this is the kind of fun stuff. I got this rad skull, which is probably the same bitmap I used for Roulette. So we started working on that. We said we should make this an arcade game. Oh, Sewer Shark. I love Sewer Shark. So we had a green screen of for death animations and everything. So it was really fun. We've been working on it for weekends for like 3 years, here and there. And we're like, we should make this an actual arcade game. We just had like this little baby cube, like with really poorly drawn cube. I wish I saved it. I forgot to save it. But it was a really stepped up to this big thing, and now it's completely out of control. We're down for work in Florida, and we walk into the surplus place. Florida's crazy, by the way. And here's an M1 Abrams tank gun control, 120 millimeter tank controller, and we said, holy shit. And we grabbed it immediately, right? And we were like, it's a heavy thing that hurts your forearms when you play it. It's great. So we take it back, and Todd and we take the meter to it, and we're like, oh, it's just a bunch of pots and variable resistors, right? And we're like, we can interface this thing, no problem. So now our precious Fabergé of an egg of a cabinet with the asteroids monitor that's hard to get, and an ATM monitor for a second screen now has a tank controller that's hard to get. But if we ever make another cabinet, we'll get a different one. So it ended up like this, which is a photo we just took of nerds trying to look hard which is my favorite. Actually, I put another one of everyone trying to look super cool. I have like 100 photos like these, and I said, what am I doing? I'm over 30. We're just crossing our arms.
I just want to ask about that. Like, is that your, like, where is that workspace? Is that like your kind of?
This one was in Brooklyn. It was in Greenpoint, and then I got priced out. So, but now actually I have a shop not too far away. It's gone through several iterations, but now I have a garage, and that's what this is. It's kind of exciting. And I really do like this photo. So that's the what the machine ended up being. And is there anything else to show? All right, so you guys will see the trailer. They just sent out a bunch of press stuff, which we suck at, and we don't know what we're doing. So if anybody knows any good places to send this, that'd be good. We just sent out the trailer today, but I don't think many people have seen it, so I'm excited to show it to you at Fantastic Fest. Can somebody get a photo of it on a big screen? I think it'll make everybody really excited.
I'm on it.
Excellent. All right, here it goes. So this was filmed by my friend Ray Zablocki. He was my DM when I was a teenager, and an incredible videographer. And he showed up, and we were like, holy shit. We saw him taking the footage and everything, and obviously looked like he knew what he was doing. And like, he turned it around in like 3 days, and I'm still like reeling from the way it came out. All right.
In 1984, a top-secret Soviet initiative launched Russia's final attempt to win the space race and the Cold War. Its codename, Vec-9. 20 tons of frozen Vector-powered Soviet steel. 30 years later, the Iron Curtain has fallen. Unable to contact Soviet command, Vec-9 has no choice but to assume that the USSR has been destroyed. Vec-9 comes online, ready to settle the score. Enlisting Cosmonaut Vector Defense Force now to avenge Mother Russia. Vec-9.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like a car commercial. It's like, the 20 tons of Soviet steel cracks me up when it pans by. It's like 200 horsepower or something. And yeah, it was done by Ray Zablocki, and he actually got a professional voice actor to do that voiceover, which we were like, wow, yeah. So I could talk about that forever. I probably have no minutes left, right?
You have a few more minutes,
Okay.
and also we can. I'm going to turn around and see if there are any questions.
Oh yeah,
for
please
Andy.
jump in, please.
Yes,
please.
Wiley
Yes.
in the back.
I will ask. Yeah, if it is, I'd love for you guys to show it to
We
anybody.
need that on social media ASAP.
Yeah,
Any
we're
other
really
questions?
excited.
Cool. Let's take a look at Super Russian Roulette.
Yeah, I'll make this kind of quick. Hopefully you guys have played it. If not, I mean, I'll probably kick it on when we do our stuff later. This game, again, hanging with friends, and we thought it'd be funny to make like a new game with the Zapper that wasn't Duck Hunt, or there actually were very few games for the Zapper. But we wanted to do something else with the light gun, and we went to a few parties, and people were having a really great time, So it was just like a jokey thing we would bring to hotels, and it wasn't. Actually, never thought I would show it publicly. I thought it'd be like too kind of a niche thing. There's another one where I just asked my friend. Everyone just got something going on. It seems they're super talented and had never done NES art, NES music, and they both completely knocked it out of the park. So I'm going to talk briefly about some of the technical stuff. Music was done by a really close friend, Nick Gargiulo, who's really, again, talented, artist, draws really well, but he's an incredible musician, and not that he's not technical, but he'd never done tracker format, NES format that's required for the NES, and he ended up writing these two unbelievable tracks for Roulette. I asked him for kind of a Western theme, and I'm super excited about this. the intro music kind of sounds like a few dollars more, or you know, anything kind of in that. Is it Maricone? Yeah, yeah. So you end up programming this track, and what kills me about this is this whistle. So this is a square wave. You can actually, I wish I could get a little bigger. But it's perfect. It is perfect. You know, and like to be able to demake, you know, a song and have like this kind of subtle nuance thing with the square wave just by playing with the volume the way he's doing. It's actually kind of beautiful. this one when you isolate it, and then this plucky kind of guitar on 2, and then the triangle's bass plodding along. Just pretty incredible, and the noise is kind of just shuffling. It's unreal, and he'd never done Famitracker before. And I was like, wow. And you know, that just when you work on something alone, it gets really stale. But when I get this, I'm like, I have to do this. You know, I have to put this in the game. I have to figure out how to make it fit. He also wrote a ragtime for. Oh, this is the screen when it zooms in. Really uncomfortable.
Oh, your pulse wave one is still disabled.
Oh, whoops. Oh, yeah, it's going to get way worse now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Really, I'm like, can you make something uncomfortable that would, like, kind of make someone's skin crawl? He's like, yeah. You got it's like 10 minutes. And this ragtime I love. But I'm saying, you know, oops. Oh, I'm playing loose. But he was able to put this together in no time, and it just fuels the fire. I'm like, oh, yeah, now we got to do it. We got to finish it. The game is so much work. It's coded in assembly, and just getting a graphic on is, you know, may not be that impressive for people, but it takes a very long time to do things on the NES. But to have this run on a real sound chip is so cool. And then I'll try to run through this. My friend Alex did the art, Alex Bedarian, and he primarily does 3D model type stuff. But he had these really, really difficult technical limitations placed on him. And hopefully I can pull this up really quick. There are things called attribute bytes on the NES, and it only lets you choose. There are 4 background palettes of 1 transparent color and 3 colors. So you 2 by 2 tiles, meaning 16 by 16 pixels. You can only really have one of those palettes. So to have like this really big, fully animated cowboy, we had to split. I wanted him to have different color bandana and arm, you know. So we got kind of clever in the way we did it, and I can show you that none of the red will ever touch any of the blue, which will never touch in this 16 by 16 grid. So the flesh color, the black, and the transparent are constant across the 4 palettes. Then we switched the 4th one because we were like, we want to randomize. We want to give him, like, you know, a little character. Although this is his base color, and he never ends up there anymore because we had picked a bunch of pastels that always look really funny. Sometimes he'll end up in all white and looks super sharp, and it always cracks up. But Alex, again, you know, I was like, draw me some Western stuff. And he's like, all right, gave me like a cow skull, a train. The last one is probably my favorite part, which is we have a friend Rob Kurtz, who is a real character, and he voiced the cowboy. And I was like, hey man, you know, we're making this game, and you know, we need voices. We want to make it something like no other Nintendo game. We want to make them talk, you know, chat and have character and everything. So I was like, hey, can you record me some cowboy sounds? And like a half hour later, this is 2013, he just sends me something called cowboy.zip, and it's got 64 like WAV files in it, and he's just rambling like a maniac, and it was unbelievable. And we just played it, and we were cracking up. And I'll probably play that sound test while I tell some stories about that. But he did a great job, and like, yeah, it was just super funny to have him on there. So I just load up an emulator. I put a sound test in, kind of check the volume, and put a low pass filter on to get all the samples. I think this is it. Whoops. Oh, here we go.
Hey, stranger. Howdy. What do we have here?
So
I like you. I'ma call you.
we try to string together a bunch of phrases.
Hey, everyone. Look at this.
Or a bunch of really silly insults, and he pulled up I don't know where he got some of these. I'm pretty sure he made some of them up. He said he was on a site, and but he did such a great job, and he really made the character, super funny. And but we actually brought the game to MagFest, the music gaming convention, Virginia. We bring it to the suite every year, and he was there, and he put on his cowboy hat. And I'm like, oh no, man, don't do it. And so we went, and I brought the game, and everybody loved it. And he walked in, and he was just kind of antagonizing everybody in the room with the cowboy, talking like the cowboy, watching people over the shoulder, playing the game, and talking back to the character, and everybody just cracking up. But there was this one guy, I went to the kitchen to grab a beer, and he came up to me, and he was like, hey, man, is that your friend? I'm like, yeah, he's funny, right? He's like, yeah, he's real funny. He's like, oh, he really likes that cowboy shit, huh? I was like, oh, yeah, no, I gave him $20 to dress like a cowboy and, walk around and promote the game. And he was like, yeah, man, well, you really got your money's worth. But he left. So he's just like, it was super great. And then I brought it back the next year, and the guy who hosts the suite, I had the TV and the cowboy hat, and he was like, oh, no, man, get that thing out of here. I was like, what? I can't play the game? He's like, no, I like the game, but everybody was drinking really hard. They were drinking when they lose. And he's like, people were crawling around, had to throw Joe out. People were playing really fast and getting kind of competitive. So I like that it created these situations, even if that's a bad one. But so far here, I've seen people, like, not spin the barrel to get, like, kind of weird and like, try to be tough. And I watched it go back and forth, which people, like, try to shoot the cowboy, and it works now. And the game, as it stands now versus when I got on the plane, is vastly different. It's so much better now because of all the feedback I got from everybody. Yeah, he's just going on. He'll be happy that this is on here. But if anyone wants to talk about the NES limitations, this took a really long time. It was really, really tough to code, but I think it's just honestly that being here for the first day and watching people play made it all worth it, like right away, instantly. And I think I went over.
We have any other questions for Andy? Yes, in the back.
Oh. Yeah, it's a good question. The mapping the address space. The original games only had 32K of addressable space. So then the later games you can bank switch, but basically you need kind of contiguous code, and you need to split it up. So you need to be really smart about planning where your banks are. And you mean the zapper or? Oh, yeah, I think at the end of the day we were like, oh, we can put a sensor on the side so you can roll the barrel, and you have to touch the controller. And then at the end of it, we were like, no, it's just like a super front-loaded joke, and like it's over in like 10 minutes. But like the experiences you get when you play and everything, I think that's why it's perfect for here. But we're like, we should just leave it as the zapper. That way, if somebody sees it, I'm kind of cheating because most people come up and they just take a photo with the zapper for Instagram to their head, and then they're like, oh, it's a game too, and they'll go play. So like I'm kind of leveraging the objects, and things associated with that.
Yeah, was there another question? Yes, on the side there.
NES is a great platform to learn, but a lot of games came that time.
Mhm.
Did you do other platforms more advanced and make your way back to the classic one, or you started on it?
No, I kind of started on it because the appeal to me was the technical challenge more than making a game. I just want to see how I can push a system, because even working with the Genesis, there are limitations, but 68K is a pretty efficient processor. You can write C, and you can do a lot of stuff like that. You have 2 layers. You have transparency. It's a lot of stuff you can do. So I'm really in it for the thrill of I really like demo scene type stuff where it's pushing hardware to absolute limits, and so the game was kind of a byproduct of that. But I'm actually kind of happy I made it because I got to come here and see some other really incredible games. The game world is really super interesting. Like I play indie games here and there, and really have a lot of respect for all the work it takes to make something creatively like that. I'm just trying to make like a really good tech demo, and that one ended up good because I have good friends. Well, I mean, like I said, how geeked I was about that whistle on a square wave. That it could have probably happened in like Ableton and chip sounds or something, but like hearing it come out of a real console and being like, how'd you get that whistle? And it's like, oh, I put a vibrato and then I kind of like mess with the volume and then how'd you get that plucky guitar sound, on something that's so limited. And the later music in NES games are actually really incredible, but my friend did it, so I don't care. My friend made this cool thing. He figured out how to beat the system, kind of. Yeah.
And do we have one other question? Yeah, go ahead.
Hey. They're pretty well published. Rachel, probably, I guess, the NESDEV documents, NESDEV.
Yeah, there's a NESDEV wiki.
Yeah, the wiki is, really good. And you can go and actually they'll almost over-explain some of the limitations, but there are actually a lot of good diagrams where you just read about them and you're like, oh, whoa, that was tough. Like, oh, there's this glitch or there's that, and you really only have, it says you have this many tiles, but you have to color them a certain way, So actually, reading it, I highly suggest reading those things, because you'll go back and play games and you'll be like, oh, why in Mario 3 is the last tiles, why are they always miscolored? There's always something weird about games you go back and play. Or like, why does Double Dragon flicker so much? And you can go and read it, and when you go back and play, you'll start to notice things. It's actually really rewarding and exciting to do that. Yeah.
Any other questions before we move on to our last panelist? Yeah.
I'm using the Famitracker sound engine. I modified it a bit to fit to my specifications. Like I intentionally didn't use a sample channel so the cowboy can never shut up, and actually messed with the volume a bit just to try to balance it out. But for the most part, it's the Famitracker has an engine, and then when you export, you can either export it as an NSF, Nintendo Sound Format. Is that right? That can play in any emulator. But what I export is binary data that you can feed into the engine. And so the sound engine, as far as triggering the samples, is my thing. Then conversion of waves to DPCM and all that. Oh, I'm sorry. There was another programmer on it, Mike Dooley, who helped me. The guy who worked on VEC 9, who helped me write a bunch of Python scripts. And I suck at make files, and helped me convert. I could easily dump a wave into a folder and convert it to a format that can be parsed by the NES. So I used the Famitracker sound engine. It's really incredible.
Thank you. I think we're going to move on to our last
Sorry,
speaker, and then, of course, we're going to have time for questions afterward.
Thanks, man.
So cool. Very interesting. All right, we're going to do the little laptop switcheroo. And then we're going to hear from Doc.
Cool. Rock on, man. Howdy. I'm Estel Vance. I'm Doc from Rogue Synapse. I'm really an arcade collector. I've been collecting for years, and also collect a lot of old movie stuff. And I'm flattered to have been asked to speak for Duplicate, because almost everything I do is about an inch away from a C&D. So I'll present everything. But I got fascinated with the idea of arcade machines you saw in movies that were never actually made, and I kind of ticked me off that you could collect some cool old arcade machines, but you could never get the ones that were like Last Starfighter or Space Paranoids. So I started doing that. The roots of the addiction started with a Discs of Tron. It's a monster machine. I don't know if you've ever seen one. It's a stand-in cab, and it's technically fairly complex as machines go, and all parts break on that thing. But I got one, and I loved it, and just started collecting after that. And it's amazing if, arcade restoration is kind of a dying thing, but it's amazing how much people will just give you something if it doesn't work and it's the size of a refrigerator. And so in spirit of Duplicate, I put on the left up there, this is cool. I found this cab. A buddy of mine got it for me kind of for nothing. But the classic Defender, you can see on the right, and on the left is the first 10 Defenders made. this got slapped with a C&D so fast from Lucasfilm, you wouldn't believe it. It's awesome. If you can see these, it's great, and I thought it was kind of fun for this. On the right's just one of my, collect a lot of old pens as well. Sometimes you'll want me to bring down an Evil Dead pen. I didn't do it, but I got it and got it working. I can bring it down. So I thought I'd throw out just some stuff. This is crap that I should finish. So this has been on the site for years. This is since everybody's very retro here, this is a 2D, 3D combat. I can show you a little video of it if you like, but basically this is something that's on the site. You can download the demos, and I'll probably get off my butt and finish it within the year. I need to work on the jets. The tanks are done. The biplanes are done. And then another thing on the site, this is all at www.roguesynapse.com. It's all freeware, again, until the first C&D. And so this is an arcade clock. You can download these. They're kind of screensavers, but if you ever wanted to build it, the clock blueprints are on there, and it'll run all of these guys. There's a Space Invaders one that prints out the numbers. There's a cool Space Wars one that I loved. I don't know if you ever played Space Wars, old Cinematronics Vector, but if you look at the bottom left, you'll see I finally just substituted out the triangle ship for Klingons. You can play with Romulans as well. All of these work as clocks, so the score is usually the time. The death rates one shown at the upper right. Every time the white car scores, you get a minute, and every time the gray scores on the hour. And one of the games I did, this is another retro throwback. It's an XD game, Death Race. I wound up with a cabinet. It's an old board set. They're basically breadboards. They're not emulated. So I wrote the software for it and kind of went from there. This is another thing I should finish, but I wanted to go ahead and do a 3D version of this. So hopefully we'll have this out within the next year or two. Got this. I just thought it would be cool to run around, and every time you hit somebody, they turn into Tombstone. That's the impediment. And I've got a bunch of 8-bit misfits, so I thought it would be fun to run around in a graveyard running over people to 8-bit Last Caress. So anyway, this was the first machine I actually built. It's the Space Paranoids. It's the first one out there. They did a marketing version for Flynn's Arcade, which is just beautiful. Mine, actually, you can swap it out if you happen to find the Flynn's software. And so it's Space Paranoids Deluxe. But basically, I took an old Buck Rogers cab that had been gutted and started working with a software called Dark Basic. This is an old compiler. I'm an old guy, and I need to update my compiler. My stuff still works on modern computers, but you need a draw file. It's on the site. But basically, this was the first level that you see in the machine as Jeff Bridges plays it, and then I expanded it to be a number of other levels. It's a freeware download along with kind of the artwork and everything you'd need for this cabinet. Starfighter was the second big one I did. This I had here last year. The cabinet, everybody says I made it. I didn't. I got it from the guys who did a documentary on the film. So it was Fine, Doug Fine, basically did the documentary on the film, and he had the cabinet built, and I got in contact with him about doing the software and wound up negotiating for the cab. So this is, again, it's just a full build. Anybody could do this. This is, the software is done in Dark Basics, a very easy, is actually a step below Unity, which is probably what I'll go to soon, since I think my compiler is aging faster than I am. And the cabinet, everything is run off the iPac boards, which are a little testy, but once you kind of get used to them, they're okay. I may go to Zumi, which is what Josh showed me this year. But anyway, this is everything you see in the film. I tried to map it exactly. I took screen caps of every bit of digital that I could do, tried to get the ships to look exact, tried to get the command ship to look right, went through every bit of the explosion. And so you can download this and play it. I bring it to expos and stuff. I had it here last year. I can always bring it back, but everybody seems to love this because it's just got such a profound sense of nostalgia. And I think of everything, this is the one everybody kind of remembers as the machine that should have been made but never was. Atari had a set of board sets for it, but it was going to cost, I think, $6 to $7 grand a machine. It just wasn't sold back in the day. Polybius, so this, I guess, is the official announcement that also Polybius is ours. We released it years ago as a Halloween release. It was a viral release. If you go on the site and you look under Arcade, there's a picture that you can enlarge, and there's a geographic link into a rabbit hole that takes you to an unsearchable set of JPEGs. that are also geographically mapped to downloads and such that allow you to build your own Polybius machine. I went through the interview with Steve Roach, and I went through every bit of urban legend that I could at the time. The Polybius machine, I think this is what it's supposed to look like. The oldest image I could find, it's a midway cab. Somebody photoshopped it, threw on a Nintendo left door. So the door you see it below is actually a left open door as opposed to a right open door. And then if you go to the site, you can download the marquee, the software. It runs both vertical and horizontal, and it tries to do a lot of the things that the original software was supposed to do. It probably was a version of Tempest, like before Tubes or before Alien, and it probably was the screen spun, which caused a vertigo effect, so people got nauseous, and that's why Tempest runs on the outside now. But this does actually spin the screen, and it has a ton of weird visuals. I also went as far as to include a diagnostic menu in there. There's a regular diagnostic menu, things like bookkeeping and sounds and so on, and then there's a higher functions menu. You have to enter a code. It's a Polybius on a Polybius square. He was a cryptographer, so it's just if you look at a Polybius square, you can. But I also posted a picture of the numbers you have to enter. If you do that, it'll give you the clue that it was us all along, which is Igor Yaspanis, which is Rogue Synapse as an anagram. So,
do you want to explain for those who maybe aren't familiar with Polybius or the sort of the legend surrounding it? What is, maybe give a little background on this project.
Polybius was a cab that apparently showed up in an Oregon arcade back in 81. And basically Men in Black would show up in the machine and monitor it, and then the people who played the machine showed a number of things like sleep disturbances. I downplayed the suicide, but they had all these mental illnesses following it and so on. And it's kind of the classic urban legend of video games, and it's certainly, as arcades go, I think the classic urban legend. And so the thing is I tried to incorporate both sort of the supernatural elements. So there's poltergeist functions, there's ghostly faces that you can just kind of see. They laugh, they whisper, and then there's a ton of government stuff. And some of the higher function menu items would have been, at the time, pretty actually things people tried. So there's actually entrainment loops in it. So if you're into like 70s stuff, there's agitation loops and things like that, which I don't think work because I beta tested this thing for God knows how long. There's also simple effects like Polanski. There's a bee. There's a couple of insect noises in the background, which you can hear. It's the same sort of thing they used in The Exorcist to heighten things. So I tried to really make it creepy. There's also things, if you wanted your own Polybius machine, you can, one of the poltergeist functions allows it to turn itself back on if it's been turned off. And if you put it in a floor plug, you can run a fake plug out the back, which is really cool. Anyway, the whole thing is there, including your fake Oregon inspection stickers if you want them. I've seen a lot of builds of this, and funny, just got an email this past week from a kid in 8th grade who wants to put one in his school, and I was like, wow. I come from a whole family of lawyers. I was like, I don't know on that one. It's like, other stuff. This is part of what is hopefully becoming an Incom arcade. Again, I don't have permission from Disney to do this, but I do have a friend named Walter who thinks this is a cool idea. So this is Astro Gunner. This on the left, you see the viral campaign for the Tron Legacy, and my fiance's son was talking about asteroids, and he goes, "It's a shame nobody ever did a 3D." And I was like, well, there have been some great games like Tail Gunner, things like that. So this basically is a 3D forward-moving, always moves forward, simple vector game with asteroids. So the asteroids blow up, it's 3D explosions, and you have aliens in the asteroid field that fire at you. It really mimics what you see on the card. And it's a very simple game. It's all done in false vector. Again, that needs to go on the site, but I can show you all a demo. I'm having trouble with my compiler going to this, so I have a couple of movies, but nothing huge. It is an Incom cab. A friend of mine, John Lee, did the art for it, which turned out just amazing. And the machine, when it's on, really pops. The cool thing, this is when your ship finally blows up, it pulls out. It's always first person until then. The cool thing is that, if you use an old cabinet, this was an Asteroids Deluxe, it could still be an Asteroids Deluxe. It was missing the artwork, and it had been pretty messed up, but it still had the mirror. So I actually wrote the software. You can actually put in a mirror image if you want. The great thing about some of these old cabs is that some of the simple optics, and man, if you look back at some of the like cinematronics and stuff where they used mirrors, you can get beautiful effects, holographic effects that you can't get any other way. So this is great because it actually adds depth. It looks like you're looking about 3 feet back into the machine when you play. The most recent project we did, and we got it out for Fan Expo in August, was a Star Trek chair. I love Star Trek, so I know the Drafthouse does it well and as well. And I always loved the old Star Trek arcade game. So I thought it would be cool to have an arcade game that played not in the movie chair, but in the actual original captain's chair. So we set that up, and I wrote a raster version. This is all the levels. There's a ton of bonus levels. The original is shown at the top left. That was an old Sega Vector. It was a beautiful game. Actually trying to grab one of those. But I wanted it in raster, and I added a bunch of bonus levels. So you have the original Klingon, and you have the Starbase levels, and then you have the Nomad level, except it fires a giant energy ball rather than laying mines. And I tried to map all of the levels that were seen both in the game and in consoles. So there's an asteroid level, the sort of pretty pink level, but it's done in the classic Star Trek. You've got like lots of flashing lights and flashing clouds. And of course the Doomsday level, which is the one everybody seemed excited about. So if you can't piss off the Doomsday machine long enough to save the Constitution, it eats it, and then it goes to Earth and kills everyone. And this is just at least the prototype. I had a friend trying to send me a picture of the larger version that we had at the expo. It's a full captain's chair, and you work off the controls where he would have had the lights. We're actually building in the actual controls. From there, I put a picture of my high score screen, which I really love because it's a transporter, and the letters transport on and off. Super nerdy, but cool. The funny thing was, everybody who played that game sat like Kirk. At some point or another, they'd put their elbow down, and it's like, damn, even little kids. It was very funny. Another thing I'm working on, and this is a new project, this is a BioShock game. So again, I've never gotten a C&D. I'm looking for them. And so this will definitely be a build, and it'll be out, but I don't know if it'll be a free release. But the idea is that it's after Rapture has fallen, and it's a submarine game. I got a Sea Wolf recently. It's an old black and white sub game. It's beautiful. And I got a Sea Raider, which is an old electromechanical. It needs some work. I'm going to probably reskin it as the 20,000 Leagues machine that they had at the old Disney parks. But what I did was years ago, I got a Big Daddy. So I found a guy who had one of these. He didn't want it, and I bought it from him. And he mailed me everything but the torso. These arms are as big as, they come up to my shoulder. So I've had this in storage for years, and I've been trying to figure out what to do with it. So I wanted to do a BioShock game that you walked up and literally looked into a portal on his chest and played the game. And the game will probably be a screen that looks like a portal, and then I'll actually use the edges of the screen, pull them off for gauges and things, just with optics. This is a screen cap of the actual environment. And let me see if I can play the movie. Okay. Well. All right, hold on. I don't know if it's going to show sound or not, but anyway, well, I'm not getting the sound, but it's a old. And this is just a model test, just a simple. These are some of the subs. I think I've got about 10 subs, including a couple of large ones, an old Nazi sub, which is kind of fun to blow up, and then the sharks and stuff, which are your supply of Adam. Switching back and forth may not be easy. That I've done a lot. So anyway, here's some model tests showing you the various subs, the various sizes, and then this is the collision modeling. I actually do all my own collision modeling, especially for static environments. It's just so much faster to have either an array or some other posited, simply accessible way of looking at a complex surface. These I did do the plasmids. Yes, Virginia, there will be plasmids. They're all submarine based. So you have smart torpedo, boomerang. You can call a bunch of sharks to get in the way of things. Electric eel, hate puppet is my favorite. So you can call all the other submarines against a single target, and so on. Another project that I need to finish is Bishop of Battle. So for those of you who are in your 20s, this is an arcade. And And so this was what they looked like back in the day. This is an old John Sargent movie called Nightmares, and this was an anthology, and this was Bishop of Battle, probably the most famous one from it, and I think, in my mind, really the second most famous arcade movie build. And so
Nightmares is coming out on Blu-ray in December, the 22nd,
Cool.
from Scream Factory.
Cool, and which is cool because the DVDs are going for $70 to $80, so it will be nice to see a re-release. But basically, this was a full cab, and it was a unique cab, so I've not been able to find the guy who built it or anything else. Very unique controls. It had a left spinner, had a right gun. Does anybody recognize the gun? Nobody's as old as me. Well, it's a Battlestar Galactica Lasermatic from Mattel. I have a couple of them. It took me forever to find them. But basically, it's a vector game. It was done with a Cray. It ate up the whole budget for the film. And it goes from 2D to 3D, basically. Here's as far as I've gotten with it. I started to work on this and then got pulled aside for a project that actually would get me into trouble. But basically, I've gone as far as A-star pathfinding. I've got the enemy firing in place, the explosions. We've got a alphanumeric alphabet, a vector alphabet, and then a full working player firing. Again, if I've got it, again, I don't know if it'll play it, but this is a model test, which has been on the site for a while, and it basically just shows the intro. I don't know why I'm not getting sound.
Do you have the audio jack plugged in?
I do. It may not have captured it.
Oh, there we go.
I think
Yep.
it just didn't capture it when I did the fraps. I was trying to run it out of compiler, and it just wouldn't. The resolution change out of the compiler didn't do it. But basically, it's pretty close to being finished, and it was when I got stuck doing. Well, not stuck. Got asked to do. And if I'm running over, let me know.
Yeah, we're got maybe just a minute or two, so.
So
one other project maybe you want to show?
this is Altered the Unnamed. It's a movie project. The guy said, we've got rights to Bishop of Battle. If you do Bishop of Battle for us, we'll get you rights to the game. You can produce the game. I was like, sure. So we worked on it. They didn't have rights to it. And they had a cast. They had a budget. They had a site, which was the Fun Spot in New Hampshire. Freaking awesome. And they had everything they needed, but they didn't have a franchise. So I pitched this. I'm a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan. This is a Lovecraftian game. And I may be asked to bring it sometime. It's cool. It is not on the site yet. But basically, the idea was it's a living chessboard, that there was an ancient intelligence that over years had, back even in Greek times, people would go to it for answers, and they'd be sucked into playing a game with it. And the idea was in the 80s, an Eastern European group figured out how to resonate as this altar did. And they developed this game. And, of course, it's an evil game that eats you. And so these were just some tests for the environment. These were all the animals and the creatures. These are all, they move differently. Some move as chess pieces would move. Some explode, some fire. Some move beneath the game board. Some destroy the game board. Some fly above it. This is my buddy Noel Johnson, who really, when I can't get something done, he does. This guy's a genius. He's kind of a savant. And this is the working cabinet. And that brings me to the end. I will say, I have a giveaway. So this was a promo that was for the movie, which never made it out of the can. We shot the entire thing, and they didn't do the externals. And I tried to explain, just gimmick it. So I'm a huge fan of Roger Corman, but also William Castle. So can anyone tell me? So this is a ring. And very few people have these. These are just a few made. Can anyone tell me what you would say for that medallion?
Any takers?
Can anyone tell me who the guy is there?
Anybody? No?
I'm so old. Can anyone tell me who starred in Bishop of Battle?
Who starred
Right.
in...
We might have to think of some other
We'll think of another way
trivia
to do
questions
it, but,
during the break.
So that's Zotz, and that was William Castle, and he would do promos for his stuff. He was always a gimmick guy. So that's it. That's everything.
Great. That's great. So let's give all of our panelists a round of applause.
My buddy on
And I do want to take a moment to see if there are any questions for Doc. Of course, I have a question, and since I've got the mic, I'm going to ask it real quick. How do people react to these games? And in particular, I'm curious to know if people come up to you and say, "Oh man, I played this game all the time when I was a kid."
So
Does that happen?
it does. And Astro Gunner was a great example. I had that at a basically a prop show, and it was next to a Tron, and nobody noticed it. And I was like, and finally I said, hey, what, it's pretty cool. And he's like, oh yeah, I played that all the time. I was like, no. So people do, and same with Starfighter actually. Space Paranoid's not so much, but yeah, people will always recognize what they've seen and just assume that it's something that it's got such a nostalgic sort of resonance, I think, that people just pick up on that and feel like they've done it before.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, do we have any other questions from the audience? Yes, in the back.
You keep saying that you haven't been given a cease and desist quite yet for anything. I guess the question is, why keep doing it then? If the big fear of the big bad lawyers for Activision and all these different kind of companies that own the rights to these things come knocking on the door.
Well, I think so. To be honest, I think the vibe for at least fan-derived stuff, if you're a hobbyist, which is really what I am, as long as you're not making money on it, as long as you're not profiting from it, it's free advertising for them. And things like Starfighter, I mean, I met some of the.
I'm not like. It's more of the Rapture games that I'm like. There's a line there that.
Yeah.
A lot of those companies tend to. Because I imagine like Starfighter's like, oh cool, it's the game from the movie, or anything else like that. Whereas you're now making a piece of new IP based on somebody else's IP in that regard.
And that may stay just as a giant cabinet that goes to shows. So we'll see. Those guys are actually pretty cool about fan stuff. It doesn't compete with anything they have, but you're right. That one I'm going to be a little careful with.
Okay.
So everything else, though, there's pretty much a basis for, like the Star Trek. I mean, there's tons of Star Trek fan stuff out there. As long as you're not, as not just stealing intellectual property, I think they're pretty cool about it. So.
Plus, there's a category of abandonware where people won't enforce their IP. Right. That's true. But this is again. That's why we kept making a joke. I've yet to get C and D quite yet.
I'm not actually trying to get one.
Right.
So.
Never is when we do it, and that's I'm just how do you keep doing this with that big fear of potentiality? But I guess
I've done it a long time. It hasn't happened. So
Well,
we'll see.
Annie's a badass motherfucker. So no big deal.
Here, here.
I've got a question actually for you.
Sure.
So you mentioned that you watch movies from your childhood. There was cabinets that didn't exist. So there's like modern Cartoon Network shows these days that are doing a lot of fantasy cabinets in the cartoons. I wonder if you're like up on that and have any interest in doing like current day fantasy cabinets.
I'm not fully up on that, although I've seen a few of them. I think the most recent cab that I've been like, man, I should build that is Plague, the Plague from Hobo with a Shotgun, which is basically a narc. It looks like narc, but it's much more violent, which I think was cool. So.
There's always like Nuke Whales from The Simpsons.
Cool.
Back in, it was probably 20 years ago.
Actually, Triangle Wars was the one. I don't know if you
Oh,
ever
yeah.
saw it, where he's like, it's crapping little triangles. I don't understand this game.
Any other questions for Doc? Or actually for any of our panelists, I think we can move into sort of an open Q&A session, and then we're going to switch over and have some live demos in a little bit, which I'm really looking forward to. I guess I actually have a question for all three of you. So I think something that unites all of your work is sort of an interest in nostalgia, retro, old technologies, and I was wondering if you guys could speak to what does that mean to you, if anything. I know some of you guys have spoken on why you're particularly interested in retro technologies, but do you think that it does something that contemporary technology cannot do? And if so, what?
Well, for me, I kind of started things out, I think maybe a little differently than a lot of people. When I was young, I did a lot of just weird verbal storytelling games with friends, and I wasn't allowed to play like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. But it was essentially that kind of thing where I'd get friends together, and then I would just start making up stories, and then they would each get a turn to like decide to do something. And when I got my first computer and had QBasic, then I would start like making interactive kind of fiction type stories. And that kind of led into like I had a 2400 baud modem, so I could get online to BBS bulletin boards. And my favorite was Noodle Ranch, which had some great games. Like there's an awesome one called Murder Motel, where every day everybody had like 70 moves, and when you log off, you're still where you are, and you just have the name of someone to kill, and then you just move around the hotel and try and find your target and murder them, and so on. So all these weird kind of games connecting people that are kind of disconnected by nature, and then that combined with like, you know, kind of the more classic going to the arcades and that the fun of using up all your allowance to get to the same point every week because they designed the difficulty curve so you'd never quite beat it, so they could string you along for absolutely ever. But yeah, for me, it was much more on the storytelling side because every time I make a game, I usually have a story behind it. Like Afterglow has an entire narrative behind it that you don't know about. And like you get a sense of it if you watch the trailer I made for it, but basically it's like, okay, the Soviet Union like is building this just incredibly powerful like anti-war device, and it's going to win them the war, and they finish it, except they finish it just too late. And so they're like, all right, well, we're going to die. The enemies are coming. We're all done for, but like, you know, give it your all. And like, and you know, he's talking about his babushka, and she's gonna be dead, and like all this sad stuff. But I've just always loved the idea that you know, like the story of your world so much that like weird bits of that come out in your game, and not necessarily in a coherent fashion, but like the kind of the fun feeling and passion behind that. And yeah, I don't know, that was rambling.
That's good. Well, I did mention my love for the NES, and the playing a lot of those games probably helped me pick up most of my problem-solving skills, and I really liked the difficult ones. But even just going back, and it's hard to say if you're biased, right? You know, so I think at that talk we gave last year, I said that my sense of humor and moral compass and they're all pretty much formed by early adventure games and RPGs that I used to play. So it's hard to tell if I'm biased, but I mean you probably saw how genuinely happy I was when that music was playing on the NES. You know, I really it's super tough to say, but for me, really, it is. I do like imagining what I would have done if I were 10 again and was able to make a game. You know, I know a lot of people have spoken about somewhere they have a notebook or a sheet of paper and daydreaming and in class and stuff and like drawing out characters. Or I've heard that story, you know, several times across several people. So I like to think that now that I'm a grown-ass man with a day job, I can afford, you know, to like, you know, route these circuit boards and stuff as a hobby and, you know, kind of live out that fantasy I would have had as a kid, yeah.
I would agree. I think, you know, in nostalgia terms, these games, they're the childhood of the industry. So even if you didn't grow up with it, you recognize it for what it is. It's a youth. It's a time of simplicity, and sometimes those are the most elegant times. So I think a lot of the retro stuff remains. Now I'm biased because I'm old, and I could have told you in Fort Worth every single arcade, where it was, what machines they had, what 7-Elevens had. I mean, that was the day. But even then, I see kids playing, you know, any of the old, especially like a Vector. I love the Vector stuff, and Atari Vectors are just like magnets. Kids love them, and so I think it really does represent, you know, it's the industry's childhood, and it's kind of our childhood. So
Great, thanks. Well, I know we want to get to our demos. We've got a little bit of time left for demos, but does anyone else have a burning question? Yeah, in the back. Wiley.
Oh. Cool. So the Splatterhouse I brought, I kind of talked to the guys and said, hey, I can bring some classic stuff. What do y'all want? And we had done a Splatterhouse for Fantastic Expo, or for, Let's Play Expo. And the Splatterhouse you see there, that's just a build. It's, you know, it's the original Namco board. and it's in a Dynamo cab, so pretty easy to get. And all of the electronics you see are about $20 worth of stuff. I can show you how to do that. It's all Halloween stuff, and I wanted kind of the grindhouse look. But I didn't have any art for the cab, and actually had met a guy at a Screw Attack show by the name of Eric Lemus. And he's a great guy. He's a local artist. He's a tattoo artist here in Austin. And we had not been able to get the cabinet down to him for the show. And so when y'all said, hey, we would love the Splatterhouse, I was an opportunist of the worst sort and saw an opportunity to get the cabinet painted. So Eric came and did that. So he's done a beautiful job with both sides. There was never any dedicated Splatterhouse side art. You certainly, if you look online, you'll see the TurboGrafx, you'll see some of the card art, but you won't see a lot of really anything for Splatterhouse. Everybody does their own custom. So he came and did that. He's done other machines that I've seen that have just been, he did a Street Fighter Blanco that was like over the top, Blanca and over the top, and also a X-Men 4-player, just beautiful, original art. So again, if you're into arcade preservation, which I am, stuff like that really is great. So Eric Lemus here in Austin, I think you'll be seeing a lot of him. He works, I think, with Arcade for Home as well. I think he works with those guys.
I think I want to leave some time for demo, because I know we've run a little bit over on our panels, but you guys had so much interesting stuff to say. I hated to cut you off. So I think we're going to do a little bit of a tech switchover. Let's do it. And Jerry's going to show a demo, and Andy's going to show a demo. Yep. We have technically our slots till 1:30, but I know we started a little late. Can we maybe go a little bit late? All right, so maybe this was supposed to end at 1:30. Maybe we'll sneak to 1:40, 1:50, since we started about 20 minutes late.
Thank you.
So we'll just take a few minutes for a tech switchover, and then looking forward to seeing these demos.
Okay. Hey, great job, man. Thanks. My buddy, following a dog act, man. You're freaking vector thing. That guy made it look real good. He did not. It's beautiful. That is a work of art. Tech 9 guy. He's flipping out. He's like, oh, this guy's.
So Jerry, are you going first on our demo slot? Is that you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I get the audio?
You got the headphone jack?
Oh, I did, sorry.
Yeah, stick around. These are going to be pretty good. We're going to try something new, so you guys will be all
Are we
involved.
just going right in, or?
You should go, and then I'm
Okay, great. Sweet. Yeah. All right. We'll try and move this along. So the first one I want to demo is this is a really, really simple one. It was done in a couple of days. It's called Dial. I worked on this. My friend Lisa Brown helped out. She did the art, and we just kind of chatted about it. But the idea was this is supposed to demo doing kind of a fun hardware and software interaction without any coding. So the rotary phone here is the control. It's got an easy key inside. The phone itself is virtually unmodified. I basically recrimped the ends of some of the wires in there just so I could plug them into a breadboard. But the rotary is essentially just two circuits. One that opens when you start dialing and then closes when it finishes. So if you imagine a button and it's just when you start dialing, you press down that button, and then let go and it's done. And then there's a second circuit that just opens and closes every time it passes a number. So let's see, do I have that on? So let me turn that on. And I'll just really quick show you kind of how that works. Bigger. Oh, I can just do this. Okay, so first, you can see, if I pick up and just hang it up, it types. And then if I dial, so I basically press the D key, and now I'm going to let go, and then it just presses the letter P for each time it pulses. So if you want to write a game that I just dropped my phone. If you want to write a game that responds to that, you basically just wait for that D press, and then you count how many times P is pressed until D is released. And it's really just as simple as that. So to do this, I figured we could just pass the phone around a little bit so people can just really quick try out the game, and then we'll move on to the next one. Yeah, just bring that to whoever you want. We can just have a few people try. So there are two modes. There's easy and hard. Easy is essentially the tutorial. I mean, it plays the same, but it's a little bit slower, and it gives you a mapping so you actually kind of know where to shoot. If you're feeling dangerous, you could try 2, and that you have to actually kind of figure out the relationship between where the bullets are coming from and how you're firing. You're basically shooting the armadillo's bullets out of the air, and the bullets kind of drift towards one segment of this of the radius of the circle. So here you would dial 2. There you go. Dial 3. There you go. So again, it's a super simple example, and that's what I love about older hardware like a rotary phone. There's just so little to it. I didn't need to do any coding or even get a microcontroller involved to make this happen. Like anybody could open up a Bell telephone and do this, and then just dial again. It'll go back to the main screen. But and then if somebody wants to try number 2, it's a little harder. But now you kind of understand how to play it, and it's running Bluetooth, so it connects exactly the same way as a Bluetooth keyboard. So you just kind of are hunting for it, and then you pair with it, and then from then on, it just kind of automatically connects up really nicely. You're already screwed. Oh, hey. And of course, it's harder because some of them are much further around on the rotary, and it's just all kind of random. But yeah, Lisa Brown did the art for this for me just like in an afternoon, and I was like, "Hey, will you draw me a Western guy or whatever?" And she's like, "Can it be an armadillo?" And I was like, "Sure." And she's like, "Then I'll do it." So I thought that was kind of nice. So yeah, that's basically it. We can have one more person try it out, and then I'll kind of get into the next one, which is an alternative controller for Luftrausers. It's a bit more wiry, but also a very simple design. And this was kind of for Luftrausers. It was kind of an exercise. Like I'd made 2 controllers for it. One that was just a very standard arcade, so you just had a nice joystick and some nice clicky buttons, and just kind of improving the feel of playing the game rather than using the keyboard. And then the second controller that I'm going to demo here, I really wanted to get into kind of the pilot experience, the getting to be the plane, getting to be flying through the air and shooting everybody down. And so here, we can move over to that. Is there anybody else that really wanted to try it before I switch over? That's all that. Okay. So we will move on over to Luftrausers. Thank you. So for Luftrausers, when I was trying to figure out kind of how I wanted to do it, it was, I mean, a lot of it was kind of rather natural because you're an airplane. So I was like, okay, well, you should have airplane wings to be an airplane properly. And then when I was thinking about like how you'd kind of play something like that, it's like, okay, you just kind of put your arms out, and like it's very natural to like want to tilt and control it that way. And you know, you've got left and right, so tilting, and you've got firing, and you've got thrust are basically the controls. If you don't know Luftrausers, it's a Vlambeer game, just really like high action bullet shooter, just lots of enemies, and you've just got this little airplane, and you're kind of rotating left and right and shooting everywhere, and then always kind of drifting down from gravity. So for the shooting, I was like, okay, well, you can have kind of the weapon in your hand, but I didn't like how the lack of symmetry with that, and so I was like, well, I could just have two of the capsules and then just wire them together so both of them have to be pressed in order to fire, which actually just really felt a lot better, just holding them both and And then for thrust, it's like, okay, well, we've got the upper body kind of all in, and so just made a just a little foot switch that you can just kind of step on. So it's very unobtrusive to the experience. Now, the tilting was interesting because it's like, especially working with a lot of microcontroller stuff like that, it's very easy to want to go like the more complicated technology, like using an accelerometer or a gyroscope or something like that to get all these numbers to crunch and have it just be this perfect thing. And I realized it was once again I was just like really overcomplicating it, because the beauty of like the hit emulators and again, since I'm trying to like do this push of like make projects that are very accessible to people, what I used instead of they're these little tilt switches, and it's just a capsule with 2 wires that go in and a ball bearing. So the ball bearing tilts one way, it makes a contact between the 2 wires, and that's the equivalent of a button press. Works the exact same way. Wiley.
Where'd you get your tilt sensors? Because I just got some and I had to whack them to get them to actually work.
Oh, really?
About the ones that were listed as fast on that.
I got. Wait, are you talking about vibration or tilt?
Maybe it's just vibration. Never mind.
Yeah, the vibrations, and those are actually really cool too. It's again 2 wires, but one of them goes in and spirals into a spring, and then the other is just a wire in the middle. And so when you thwack it, then like the spring wiggles and it touches the wire in the middle, and then once again it's the equivalent of a button press. They have different. They have like 3 different levels are very common in terms of like how sensitive they are. So probably how thin the wire gauge is, or how in order to do that. But those work just the same. Anything that kind of clicks. The problem with like the mechanic or the ones like the spring and the ball bearing is you need to debounce. So like there are these like microseconds where it comes into contact but kind of bounces off and reconnects and so you kind of want to filter that out. But what they used to use is mercury switches, which are little like just glass capsules with mercury, and then the same principle, 2 wires and then mercury, and then you tilt it and the mercury flows in. And that was great because there's no debouncing. It's just like this perfect instant connection. It's lovely, but it's full of mercury, and kids evidently can't not put it in their mouths or something. So yeah, that's basically all it is. So I'll try and get kind of suited up, and then we'll and I'll show it to you. We'll make sure we can get Luftrausers going.
Luftrausers also available in the Fantastic Arcade Humble Bundle for like 20 more minutes. Yeah. Is it over? Never mind.
Okay, so this will be interesting because one of the pins has snapped, so something might not work, but I think you'll get the idea. As you can see, this is just an absolute hot mess. So I think you get the idea there. It's yeah, if that one wire hadn't snapped, the left tilting would have worked just fine. But it actually, like, it's surprisingly like fluid once you get into it. And so the little capsule that I have for the tilting, it's kind of nice the way it works because you can kind of calibrate it when you start the game. So you launch and you just kind of like rotate a little bit in your hand until you get a good feel of like where the tilt point is, and you can kind of adjust it yourself. So it, pretty quickly you get into the zone of how you like how sensitive you like the tilting and turning to be, and then the firing just always just feels really nice and satisfying, kind of that symmetry of being a fighter plane. So yeah, this was just another like really quick afternoon of cutting out cardboard and taping it up and stapling on stuff. So yeah, crafting is a nice way. You can do a lot of good stuff with crafting, but yeah, it'd be nice to have a wood shop. Actually have tools. So yeah, that is that. I think the last thing I just want to really quick show. Stupid game. So the last thing I'm going to show, this one's really dumb. So I already showed the cue car. That was kind of driving around. The last one I was doing just an example, Bluetooth low energy project, and so this is kind of a plastic prize egg, like Easter egg, and it has 2 vibrational motors in it, kind of like you'd have in a cell phone. And with the Bluetooth low energy, you can do kind of medium range, similar to regular Bluetooth in terms of range connections, but it doesn't require any pairing or anything kind of special there. And I made an application that will scan for the specific advertisement that the chip sends out. So I, write firmware. I'm using an RFduino, so very similar to Arduino code, but it has a Bluetooth LE library. And so it's advertising that it's this particular device, and I call them zigzags. And they each also advertise their color. So right now I made an app in Unity, so you can have up to 5 different zigzags that are kind of like, hey, hello, I'm here. So you could have like 5 different people walk up and open the app and then just connect to one. And then it switches to this control that has dual, just these 2 controls, one for each of the motor, so you can drive the egg around. And the idea for this is it's like first kind of just making this toy, but then coming up with different games and rules you can make with it. So what I want to do is I want to solder another one and then have like an egg sumo game. So you have a little circle, you put your 2 eggs in it, and you're both like driving your little eggs at each other and trying to push them out of the circle. And like kind of there we go, yeah, getting a feel for it. It's super freaking weird. And like one addition I've been thinking about making is adding like a thin copper strip, and then making an official like sanctioned sumo court. I don't know what they call them. With kind of a copper strip, so that when like an egg gets pushed out, it's all very official. Like have a little board that's like, declares which egg got the point, and so like really have it kind of self-regulated and be kind of a complete game rather than just like, us deciding. So yeah, that's this. If anybody's interested in starting an egg racing league, like I'm available and open to that. I love gambling. So that's pretty much it for me. If anybody wants to talk about any of these projects or try them, if you want to try the egg or whatever, then let me know. I love to talk to people about their stuff and love hardware collaborations and building controllers and stuff for people. Like, I think we're all kind of obsessed with learning new things. Like, now that I met Andy, I'm like freaking out about his shit every day. He's probably getting that like, he's probably feeling like I'm a little clingy, but
But it's just all such cool shit, right? I can't get enough of it. So thank you all, and let's get Andy going, because this is going to be the coolest thing you've ever seen in your freaking life. So you're going to forget about me in 5 minutes. Take it, buddy.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna switch over.
Oh, and Zach's awesome too.
He.
He's from Minnesota, like me. We've been buddies for quite a while, and he does web things, which is incomprehensible to me.
Yeah.
Hi, I've been this strange guy sitting behind this monitor the whole time.
Just creeping.
Writing code so that we can do this thing. So I'm Zach. I'm from Minneapolis. My online handle, I have a really common name, Zach Johnson. So my online handle that I go by is Zachstronaut. I just ran into Andy yesterday, and or 2 days ago maybe it was, and we were like geeking out about kind of the NES sprite system and the limitations, and I showed him this OpenGL pixel shader that I wrote that like tries to replicate realistically the kinds of glitches you get in the NES sprite system, but for modern games. And then I was showing him some other stuff, like some massively multiplayer games, and he's like, dude, what if we built a like web interface so that everybody can glitch out my NES in the audience? And I was like, we have to do that. So I've just been like cranking on code for 2 days, but I've still had plenty of time to drink and play games, strangely enough. I'm at Zachary Johnson on Twitter, and if you Google Zachstronaut, like Zach with an H plus astronaut, you'll find me.
Sweet. That actually went really smoothly. Is anyone good at Contra? All right. I'll take decent.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you entirely what these people are going to be able to do. You're going to turn around. I just need probably 2 minutes. We'll do a quick test run and give a shot. No, have a seat. Yeah, grab a chair. What's your name? Robert. Hey, Robert.
It's about to get real.
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
So if you're not ready for real.
Yeah, everyone get out your phone. Or a laptop or iPad. Get out a device that you can connect to either a cell signal or Wi-Fi on.
Yeah,
We're going to want to do that.
I'll put up a shortened URL in a second.
Sure, we should put in the code first.
It won't matter.
I know it won't.
We're gonna get you. You can practice that.
Yeah, I think I will.
Just got
The hardwired controller. Will the hardwired controller have an advantage over web?
He has a NES controller.
He's playing it. All right, so yeah, this is that dual port RAM mod I was talking about before. This is running on a real console, so we're gonna glitch the actual memory. But we're not gonna tell him how.
Of course not.
In a second, I just want to check the audio.
Yeah.
Audio plays on the intro screen. I can't remember. Oh, you're not gonna have that.
Well, I'm still playing, so there should be
live,
so
there
should be some.
So give me a sec.
There should be a bunch of spread, fire, and everything going on. Right?
Should be ready in a moment. Let's see. Put you here. Put the URL up if you just want to get out your phone. I think it'll work with any browser. I'm really excited about this. This wasn't even a thing 2 days ago. So I've had the dual port RAM thing for a while, and I always wanted to do something like this. guys read that? No? Yeah, it's going to be case sensitive. So we're codenaming this Nintendo Entertainment Spectre. I was actually convinced one of my consoles was haunted, which is why I couldn't stop laughing when Jerry brought his up. So just head over to the URL. I guess I can't stop you from playing with buttons for now, but we're probably going to reset and get them off right. Oh, this is really exciting for me.
So he's still getting video on the TV over here, but the projections seem to have just given up and was flickering for a bit. It was pretty intense, though. Everything went like purple and lime green over here.
Oh, man. That's back.
It's trying.
Sorry, guys. That's weird. Sorry, guys.
Oh, it keeps wanting to come back. What button?
It goes like that.
Yeah, what keeps saying?
So I've noticed before that sometimes HDMI connections, when you feed it super glitched out stuff,
Try
like
just unplugging and replugging the HDMI.
I think I'm going to restart export.
Okay.
I bet it's a bug with. Yeah, sorry, guys.
Ba-da-ba-da-da-da. This is what demoing is like for anyone that ever does hardware. Your pins will break, your projectors will stop, the gods will try and put you down.
It's so weird. It works when. Got it. All right, sweet. Perfect. I'll switch that back. Okay.
But already, how freaking cool is that? Real hardware in real time from your phone, modifying the RAM on an NES.
Only if you win.
Again, this is a unmodified Contra game.
Yeah, they're a stock cartridge in the console, so that's kind of what the fun part has been. Is really like kind of excavating the weird RAM values. Oh, it's so bizarre. I'm gonna start a new scene.
It worked though.
Try unplugging the cable, maybe.
It's only when I switch scenes between the two.
But it was up for a while. Should we reset?
Can reset it? I bet somebody fed it something it didn't like. Nope.
It's just not here. Sorry, guys.
Did you have it in a window?
I'll have enough.
Non-full screen?
Oh, did he just win? Did he just win?
We glitched the win. Wow. We glitched the win.
Hey, nice job.
Awesome. Well done, sir. Well done, sir. Thank you, Glitchy, for winning.
Yeah.
This is the greatest thing ever.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah.
There we go, finally.
Big reset to kick it off.
Dun, 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 dun,
Restart the log. So we know who did it.
I like how quickly this goes to pot. This is
You guys are ruthless.
Contra on LSD. You know, actually, an easier way to do this would have just been don't do any of the technical shit and just give them LSD.
Was it the random?
We'll try it again and then.
Which one's? I think it's the random position was probably.
Yeah, random position can be cool.
we'll take them out as we go. It took away a player 2 life.
Let's be good to him this round. Let's give him some good guns. Yeah.
You don't have to.
All right.
Completely
I gave you the
destroy
best
his
gun.
game.
I think. Doesn't look like the best gun.
That's what we like. It's kind of a push-pull. If someone takes away a life, someone puts one back in.
Aww.
Sound register, I
might have stunned him.
Oh man! All right, let's try one more time.
All right, maybe don't do corrupt sound register.
Yeah,
if you guys are out here.
that one's my favorite, but don't click it.
Sometimes, a lot of times it hard crashes the game.
I'm sorry, but that just
Somebody we got. Slower instead of scroll faster. Love of God.
Oh.
This is say this.
We're not being very nice. Sheesh.
I see knock on here.
Yeah, nice colors.
For strawberry cube spout. Yeah, who gave a? I really like watching the push pull on the ribbons on the top. Whoa, okay.
Hey, we're actually making some progress. Something's going on. Oh yeah.
We've entered the Matrix.
This is so good.
Wow.
All right, I guess
We've just got a little bit of time, so maybe one more run, and it's up to you guys whether you want to make it a short run or a brutally horrific short run.
I like the auto win option at the bottom. This is so brilliant.
All right. Oh, what? Oh, that's what it was. All right. Yeah, if you pause the game, you could unpause it. Yeah. Super annoying. Can you unpause it? Oh, there you go. You're good.
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Oh.
All right, I think that's enough.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know. I'm kind of having like next year tournament emotions right now.
Yeah, Zach and Jerry were talking about a good idea where you play the same game, but
Oh my
what
God.
you do, like Tetris, you get a bunch of blocks, you drop the blocks on the other guy. It'll be the same game like Mario where you get a one up and it'll take away from the other guy. So it'll change kind of dynamics of a speed run.
That would be so great. Two of them connected, so like one of them gets a mushroom and it's big, and it's just seesaw, so the other's small. So somebody's always one or the other. That has to happen.
Awesome. We got to clean up a little bit for our next panel. Our next panel, if you didn't already know, is going to be Sam Barlow, who created Her Story. So we're really excited about this.
Hell yeah.
But first off, please thank our guests, Jerry, Andy, and Doc. You'll be able to check out Super Russian Roulette if you guys are here. If any of you guys are here for the film festival, we're going to drag it out to the closing film festival party. And it's also, of course, in our arcade. Go ahead and start making your way out. Obviously, if you have a tab that needs to be dealt with, you can deal with that. We'll be right back in here in just about maybe 15 minutes for Sam Barlow and Her Story.
Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum.